What's up guys, Matt Collins-Jones here, MCJ back with another video, and this time we're talking about Power Platform Pipelines. Over the next few videos I'm going to be doing a whole intro series into Power Platform Pipelines, one of my favourite features in the Power Platform over the last couple of years. So what are Power Platform Pipelines? Power Platform Pipelines is a way to automatically take solutions from one environment to another. Now when I say automatically, I don't mean it just snap your fingers and it happens, you have to click a few buttons, but it reduces the manual input, the manual effort required to transfer solutions as we usually would. So historically, we had manual ALM, so we download a solution file, we upload it into our target environment, so taking it from our dev environment to our test environment to our production environment. There are several other methods of ALM, including things like the Pack CLI, Azure DevOps, and as well as like things like GitHub and everything else. But Power Platform Pipelines is something that's embedded in the Power Platform. It's a first-party application that we can use that sits in platform, that's nice and easy for users to use. In this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to install the Power Platform Pipelines application. I'm going to take you through creating your first Power Platform pipeline, and then we'll finish the video there. And then in future videos, I'll talk about the deployment pipeline configuration application. I'll talk about extending pipelines. I'll talk about changing the way they work. So we'll have a whole suite of videos on Power Platform Pipelines. So let's jump into it. So we're here in the Power Platform Admin Center. Now I wanted to start here because there are several things here that are really easy to make a mistake about, and that can affect your Power Platform pipelines. So a Power Platform pipeline needs its own environment to actually sit inside of. So it is not recommended you install it in your dev environment. It's recommended that if you want to create what we call a custom host environment, we install it in its own application. In another video, I'll talk about personal Power Platform pipelines as well. But in this video, we'll talk about installing the application. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new environment. So you can see I've got a list of environments here in the admin center. If I click on new, what we'll do is we'll call this pipeline host 1. You can see it's auto-filled. We'll make this managed. We don't need to make this managed. The host environment does not need to be managed, I believe. I'll go back and check the documentation. It's only your target environments that need to be managed. But for this instance, we'll just make it all managed because it's easy for us to manage the whole platform if we make this a managed environment. So let's just do that. We won't choose a group. We'll choose, this is another bit that I think is really important. I highly recommend you make this a production type environment. Now the reason for that is that if you make this a sandbox environment, sandbox environments can be reset, they can be deleted. This is the type of environment that you never want to be deleted. You do not want to delete your Power Platform pipeline host once you have it installed and working. If you do, you'll lose all the solution files that you've deployed, you'll lose your run history, you'll lose any of the extensions that you've done to your pipelines. So I highly recommend you make it a production environment. The reason for this is that if you want to reset it, if you want to restore a backup over it, if you want to do anything, you actually have to convert it to a sandbox environment first. Now that additional check, in my opinion, is a good way to make sure that you never delete these environments. Because if you do one thing and then click a button and then you don't really know what you're doing and you go to delete it, that's one thing. If you purposely convert it and then go to delete it, that means you're intentional about it. So I highly recommend you make it a production environment. It automatically adds data first because it's going to be managed environments, that's all good. We won't use pay-as-you-go for Azure. Security group, we'll select none in this instance. You should absolutely have security groups on everything, but like in this instance, we're not going to have any security groups, and I'll talk a little bit about security and advanced features in other videos. This one's really important. Enable for Dynamics 365 applications. You have to make this yes. If you do not make this yes, you cannot install the Pipelines application. It doesn't mean you need a Dynamics license, and we'll talk about licensing as well, but it means that you can install the application, so you need to make sure this is yes. We're not going to automatically deploy any apps, and you can see it's grayed out because I do not have licenses for it. And then we'll hit save. And then what that will do is that will start provisioning my environment. So it'll run through all the checks, it'll start creating that environment, and then in a few minutes I'll be able to use that environment. Okay, So we've waited a few seconds and suddenly our pipelines host 01 is now in a state of ready, which means it can be used. From here, let's go and install the application. We'll scroll down to Dynamics 365 apps down here. And this will give us a list of all the applications that we can install. So if I scroll down, or I can search, what we're looking for is the Power Platform Pipelines application. Here we go. Power Platform Pipelines. Now it currently says it's enabled. What we'll do is we'll hit install. We can either install from the top ribbon here or install here. And then we get a drop down to select an environment. So if we choose here, we go pipeline host 01. Now, if I'd not enabled that environment, it would not appear in this list. So it enabled it for Power Platform for Dynamics 365 applications, it would not appear in this list. That's why it's really important that you do that. So you click pipeline host 01. It'll say, hey, we're going to install these things. So it's saying we're going to install this anchor solution here. It gives us a term of service if we want to go read it. I've obviously read all of it before multiple times because I do this all the time. We can click agree to the terms of service and we can click install. Now at this point it's going to trigger something from Microsoft. It's going to say, hey, let's go and install that solution, install that application inside of that environment. So we can see the little ribbon at the top saying Power Platform Pipelines installation started at 11:13 a.m. on today's date. Now, it's going to take a little while. It can take up to an hour to install all of the different applications and all the different solutions. But once they're all finished and all installed, I can show you them next. Okay, so after a few minutes, we'll see that the Power Platform Pipelines has installed here. So you can see it says installed. And if we go over to our environment, we can have a look at the solutions. So if we go to solutions, so this is our pipeline host 01. Go to solutions and we click on managed, we can see there's 4 solutions been added. I'm not going to go into these solutions, but these are ones that come from Microsoft that allow you to deploy pipelines. So we've got the anchor solution, that's the one that we saw in the little installation notes to say, hey, this is the thing that will be installed. And then that's actually triggered these other solutions to install. There's deployment FCS, model app, and metadata. Now, more importantly, what it'll also do is it'll install an application for us to use. So we'll go over to apps. We'll take a look at it. So you can see my apps, it might not be in here, it might be shared with me, it might be under all, but if you've deployed this and you've installed it, then it should be under you. So we've got this deployment pipeline configuration application. So we'll click on play. And in here, we have several different tables and pages that we can look at. So first one, we have our pipelines dashboard. Now the dashboard will give you up-to-date information about all your deployments, so your run histories, your active deployments, etc. We've not triggered any deployments here, so there's nothing in here. Next we'll go to environments. This will be a list of your environments that you can add, and you can specify whether they are dev or they are target. So development ones you can deploy from, target ones you can deploy to. You can't deploy from a target to a dev, and you can't make a target a developer environment. This is very important. This is the pipelines page, so once we create a pipeline, it'll be in here. We can see our run history, so we can see all of our runs of all of our pipelines. We can see when they started, when they ended, what their status were, whether they were successful or not. In solution artifacts, we'll see a list of all of our artifacts that have been deployed or attempted to deploy. So the first thing it'll do is it'll export the managed and unmanaged solutions and it'll save them in here. Even if the deployment doesn't work, we'll still have access to those solution files. We have they have the settings section here, which is for different security teams. So you can add people to these security teams to administer your pipeline. So you have your pipeline administrator that can make full use of all your pipelines. There's a maker one and a user pipeline one. These are associated with different security roles, and you can make sure that you assign the right role for the person and what they're going to be doing. Will they just be using the pipeline? In which case, the users one is probably going to work. Do you want them to create pipelines and be able to use their own? Maybe the makers one, administer, gives them full access to all pipelines. And then there's an advanced settings section as well. Advanced settings show you some different settings. Some of these have now been moved to the Power Platform Admin Center, and as we do a more deeper dive on some of those advanced features, I'll touch on these as well. So we now have our pipeline application installed, but let's create our first pipeline. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into this application and we're going to choose environments, and then we're going to choose new. Now I need to provide it with several pieces of information. We need to provide it a name, an environment type, environment ID. We also have a couple of locked fields here. There's a validation status that says pending, and there's an error message field that's locked. I can't put anything in there. What I'll do is once we create this record, it'll go and check to see whether this is a valid environment. So what we'll do is we'll call this one MCJ preview. And what we'll do is we need to get the environment ID. So first we'll choose environment type. We'll choose this as our developer environment. So this is the environment we'll deploy from to a target environment. Then we need the environment ID. So let's go take a look at that. So let's go to the Power Platform Admin Center again. We'll go back to our environments and we'll find our MCJ preview environment here. From here, I can grab the environment ID. So it's in here, environment ID, copy this GUID, which is all these numbers and letters, go back to our application, which is this one, paste this in here, and what we'll do is we'll hit save. Now at this point, start off and check to see whether this is associated with another host environment or whether this is okay. So we'll click on refresh. It says failed. Needs to be present in the same geo as the project host location. Okay, that's fun. That's because I think this is one of my preview environments instead. This is a good thing to keep in the video. Let's delete this.
A few moments later.
Right, so the reason that failed is that my MCJ preview environment is in the United States and my pipeline host is in the United Kingdom. That's the reason why it fails, because it does not have cross geo on. So what I can do is go into my advanced settings and we'll turn on cross geo deployments. Hit save. Typically you'll want to have your environments in the same geo, but there is a setting here to allow you to actually deploy things across multiple geos. That's the reason why it failed. I was going to show you this in another video, but this was a good example of turning on an additional setting and seeing what it does. So we'll go back in, we will hit new, environment, we'll do the same thing again, MCJ preview, to developer environment, and we'll put in the GUID, we'll hit save, and hopefully this time it will say success. Yay! Fireworks, confetti. So created one environment. So this is my developer environment. We'll create another environment in here. So we'll call this my MCJ4 environment. Let's call it MCJ4. Yeah. We'll grab that and we'll grab that environment ID as well in here. And we will call that a target environment and we'll give that ID and we'll hit save. And again, we can see the validation status is pending. And if we hit refresh, this is success. So I'll show you some great error messaging and stuff like that pipelines do. It's great. So yeah, so we can see this is all validated in here. It's great. So we have our developer environment and we have our target environment. Now we need to create the pipeline. So essentially to say, hey, this is the pipeline. This is where we start. This is where we finish. So go to pipelines and click on new. And we'll dismiss all these pop-ups. We'll call this MCJ preview to MCJ4. You may want to give your pipeline a name that makes sense to you and your organization. So this could be a pipeline to deploy a specific sort of application, or this could be a pipeline to do a specific thing. You should absolutely name these things into something that will make sense for you. There are a few other things here. I'm not going to dig into them too much in terms of like AI deployment notes. We'll see those in other videos. Redeployment of older solutions, we can cover that later. But what we'll do is we'll hit save, and that will enable the record, and we can go add some things. So it loads these two subgrids below. So linked developer environments and deployment stages. Now, what we're going to choose, we're going to choose add existing developer environment. Most people will just default to hit new. What this is doing is saying, hey, we want to link the developer environment we created to this record. You can create new, and you can do, it basically pops up the environment, quick create here for developer environment. But seeing as we've already got one, we can choose add existing, and we'll choose our MTJ preview is our thing ones. Instantly, it shows you the other record, even though it's not a developer environment, because it's showing recent records. Not great, really, but that's just the way subgrids work. So we now can see we've got our MTJ preview as our developer environment. And we see the validation is successful, so it's all good. We can see everything from inside this record. Fantastic. Next, we need to add a deployment stage. So a deployment stage is a new type of record. So this isn't an existing one like the previous one. We're going to choose new stage. It's going to load this new web page. So it's pulling the name from the subgrid from the quick view from the other record to show you where you are, which is all great. And we'll call this. We'll give this some sort of a name. So again, name conventions can change. I have my own sorts of name conventions for this. We'll just call this prev to MTJ4 as the stage name, as in like this is what we're doing here. Again, you can give a description if you want to. Move to UAT environment, move to production environment, whichever you like. And we also have deployment pipeline. So this is the pipeline record. Now, we have two other options here. We can say we can choose the record that we want to look at, and we can choose a previous stage. So the previous stage is if you are going from like dev to UAT to production. In this instance, we're going to dev to like another test environment. So we're not going to have a previous stage. We're just going to have a target environment here. If you want to set up a multi-stage pipeline to go from your dev, UAT, test, pre-prod, etc., absolutely do that this way. You create the first one first, so you create the one where you want to deploy to first. So in this instance, we're going to deploy to MTJ4 first. So if I wanted later on to add another environment on in this previous deployment stage, I would choose this one that we're creating right now. There are also three other options we've got here. Pre-export step required, pre-deployment step required, and is delegated deployment. I'm going to cover all of these in future videos about how you do some of these more advanced features of pipelines. So choose save. Saves the record, we see a couple of things pop up, and if we go back a page, we can now see our pipeline record. So we have a pipeline that runs, it's called MTJ preview to MTJ4. So we've got our developer environment here, and we've got our linked deployment stage, which is saying, hey, deploy to our MTJ4 environment. At this stage, if I go to our MTJ preview environment, we should see this pipeline. So let's go check it out. Okay, so we are in our MTJ preview environment. You can see up here. And if I just go and open one of my unmanaged solutions, so we'll choose this account unmanaged at the moment, we'll go down to the pipelines button down here, and we can see that we have our MTJ preview to MTJ4 environment. So that's the name of our environment pipeline. So that's the name of our pipeline. That's the only one we have access to from this environment. So we can see that if I had multiple pipelines, so if I wanted to deploy to multiple different environments or had a different structure, we'd see them in here. We have a single pipeline, so we can see them here. We can see our development here, and we can see this is where we are currently, and we can see the stage name is the prev to MTJ4. That's the deployment stage that we created, and from here we can do a deployment. We can open the environment. You can also create pipelines directly from inside of this record. So if you click on create pipeline, it gives you the option here. We can add an additional stage. So we can say, hey, go from MTJ4 to one of the other environments, for instance. We can delete the pipeline. We can also manage the pipeline or view the deployments. So there's loads of different things, and we can also check out the run history. And there are two create pipeline buttons right here, which is always fun. So I think even if we go to deploy here, there is a create new pipeline button. So no matter where you are, they really want you to create a pipeline to be able to run the pipeline. We're not going to show deployments in this video. I just wanted to show you the setup. So this is what is Power Platform Pipelines. This is how to install the application, and this is creating your very first pipeline. In our next video, we'll go through deploying in that pipeline, some of the structures, some of the things to be aware of, and then in future videos, I'll show more advanced features of Power Platform Pipelines. I hope this video was useful. If it was, if you could like it, if you share it with friends, if you've got to this point in the video, spam Power Platform Pipelines are awesome in the comments down below. Thanks a ton for watching. Please share, like, subscribe, all those things, and I'll see you next time. Bye.